Mind and Money. My name is Val Stratford. I am a financial planner.
And I'm Sherry, a financial coach. And today we're going to talk about car financing, car loans, car leasing, all of those things. And we're going to include some stories of things that we wish we had done differently when we were younger.
Yes, this topic has been super top of mind for Sherry, especially in the one Facebook group she's in. There's been a lot of questions around it. I come across it all the time in my work. So let's start with what we wish we would have done differently.
So I'll start by sharing what I did. So I started working in the summer, it was a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of the summer, I worked like 8 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday, and like 4 hours at least on Friday night. And I had nothing to show for that money later in life. So I've shared here before that I was a young parent, and that then led into, with the job that I had, the job was on the highway. There was no public transportation. So I needed a vehicle to get there. And because I had no money saved, that of course led to a car loan. Now I am grateful that I ended up with a used car that had been well taken care of and didn't go down the new car rabbit hole. And I think there was some influence there, maybe from parents, but I don't recall it 100%. I just remember one car that I wanted to buy was a little like Dodge Neon. I think it was purple, and my dad called it a tin can on wheels. I'm like, okay, that's not the car then. So I did end up with a used car, but I ended up with a car loan. So then that car payment was a financial responsibility every month and put pressure on me at a very young age to have that debt to manage.
So you were how old?
I think I was 18 when I got my first car. So if I flash back to what I wish I had done, if I could go back in time, I wish I just saved a little bit of every paycheck when I was younger, because all I did was blow it on clothes and food, basically. And if I had put even like 25% away, ideally I probably would have wanted to encourage younger me to put 50% away so that I had it when I purchased a car, could have purchased a car in cash and then not had that car loan.
Yes, and then not that monthly pressure, right? Because then the other added pressure is going to be insurance at a young age, and that's not a low number. I would go back to my age 19. I was going around to dealerships and settled on totally scarcity sales. This Ford Edge had been traded in the day before, so it was new on the lot. It was a sport edition, leather seats, moonroof, all of these features. And the salesperson doing their job was like, if, we can't guarantee it, if you don't put a hold on it, a deposit on it. My parents were politely ushering me to not do it. But I looked at my numbers and I was like, I can afford this. And I was still in school. So I knew that even for the time that I was in school, I had the car payments aside in savings. So in my world, I'm like, yes, this checks all of my boxes. It was mid 20,000s to higher 20,000s. And then I went to go sign the paperwork the one night, and I just completely forgot that there would be taxes. Like, just brain right over. Did financing through Scotiabank at, I think, 6.29% over 7 years. So then, yes, had a bi-weekly payment of 200 and something. My insurance was also, $250 a month. So I would go back and I would have done the same thing that Sherry said. I was working tons of jobs through high school, saved more, or taken my savings at that time. And instead of going, I know that that's there to pay that car payment.
Yeah. Oh, I'm jealous that you had savings when you went to buy a car. I had no money in the bank. I don't even remember if I put anything down or not.
I did have that, I can remember my dad saying, it was like, start RSPs and start TFSAs. So I had some savings and then some in a savings account, but I didn't have a direction with it. So I would have removed, and it would not have been easy. It's still not easy to remove what I thought other people would think of my vehicle.
Yep.
Right. So way more about how does it look? Like, what features does it have? When my friends get in it, will they be impressed? Like, take all of that away. What's in my savings? What can I get that's still reliable?
Yep.
And that's what I would have done, is gone for a used vehicle. This one was used, obviously, but it was way too fancy. I didn't need that. And 5 years later, I sold it to my niece for like $7,000.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's there's so much pressure when it comes to cars, and it's something that people post about a lot on social media, like, yeah, I bought a new car, and everybody's celebrating them purchasing a new car. And when I see a post like that, I'm just like,
yes,
okay, what have you saddled yourself with as far as payments? And car dealerships and car salespeople, no shade to them at all, like, they are good at their jobs, but them being good at their jobs can often leave us walking off of the lot with committing to more than we wanted to going in. And sometimes we don't know what we want going in, or sometimes we're like, oh, I can afford X amount of car payment per month. And they're very good about wiggling those numbers to make it fit for you. And with how long you can have a car loan for these days, it's like, and negative equity. This one, it burns me. So what this is if you go into a car dealership and you have a vehicle and you have a $15,000 loan left remaining on it, and your vehicle is worth $10,000, what the car dealerships will do to help you is they will take that $5,000 balance still remaining once they buy your car back, and they will roll that into your next car loan. So then you are paying for $5,000 within that car loan that's not even for a vehicle that you have anymore. And because cars do depreciate so quickly, especially when they're new, it's just a lot. And I see people like in this Facebook group, and I don't know if it's just because I've been interacting with some of these posts, but in several Facebook groups, actually, I'm just getting shown lots of questions from lots of young people asking questions about cars and how they're talking about it. And a couple client conversations too recently about vehicles. And the car dealership will get you in the vehicle that you want, regardless of the financing part. And there's lots of commercials on TV too that said, like, we'll get you a car, we guarantee it. Well, a lot of time that guarantee is if you are not very credit worthy, it can mean you're paying like credit card interest rates on a car loan, which often there's like small print that you can't get out of even down the road if you want to refinance for a lower rate. So just be very cautious. And if you're a young person listening, we're glad you're here. And think about how much you can afford to pay from how much the vehicle is going to cost.
And like really break those numbers down. Like look at what you're making and think about your future goals too. Because I have clients that when we connect, they're looking to purchase a home, but they have a $70,000 truck loan.
Yep.
So that factors into how much you can get approved for, because that's a debt that you have that you're committed to already. And now you're going to try to get a mortgage pre-approval. They look at that number. The smaller that number or non-existent number helps our picture.
And a lot of the expectation too, like what car you want versus what car you need, or if you even need a car in general. So lots of people are saying like, oh, I need a car. Well, what have you been doing up until now? So if you've been taking public transportation, and yes, some people, depending on where they live, what their careers are, they do need a vehicle to get back and forth to work, depending on times and location. But if you're currently making public transportation work for you, and yes, it's more of a time commitment, but can you continue to do that to look at putting money away for future you? Can you continue to ride public transportation and get laser focused on saving and putting money away so that you can buy a car in cash? Because so many people are really car payment poor because they're strapped, and lots of young kids, young adults end up with a car payment that they qualify for because they're still living with their parents, which is great. The longer you can like have that situation so you can save money, but then you're not going to qualify for rent or a mortgage down the road because of that car payment.
Right. And it's not just the car payment. It'll be like auto insurance, the car payment, fuel, maintenance. Right. And if there's certain dealerships and sales will have different warranties, and sometimes, yes, those even out. But if you don't have that coverage, the car poor thing is real.
And like a lot of the conversations that Val and I have both had with clients recently too are, oh, I need a reliable car. I have to spend $50,000 on a car. And yes, you could get a reliable car for $50,000, but I might have gone down the Auto Trader rabbit hole over the weekend, and you can also get a pretty reliable car for 10 or 15. And yes, they're probably not going to have a warranty. And
they won't have the warranty. They won't have the moonroof.
Yeah,
the heated seats,
but
it will run.
And you are going to need to plan for more car maintenance, because the older the vehicle, the higher the mileage, the more apt it is to need maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
But in a lot of situations, if you look at what your maintenance costs are on top of that, like if you look back 2 years, 3 years after you buy the older car, you still ended up further ahead because you paid way less for a car. And yeah, reliability is like, it's based in the mind of the beholder, but
yes,
like we have purchased vehicles for a lot less than the 50,000. We've never purchased a $50,000 vehicle. So we purchased a car last February, and I can't remember how many kilometers it had, but it was like 23, 25.
Yeah.
And it's a 2018. It's very reliable, and we've had, knock on wood, very little maintenance on it. So just I challenge you to just reevaluate what you think reliable is if you're down the $50,000 vehicle rabbit hole to find it reliable. And if you're looking to buy a vehicle, don't forget the insurance portion of it, and don't sign on the dotted line until you've talked to your insurance person to know what your insurance liability is going to be month to month, because it can vary significantly based on your vehicle, especially if you're young.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to just paraphrase some of these questions that are in the group, and we're just going to talk about our thoughts on them. So honestly, if you can avoid a car loan for the duration of your life, you are going to end up so much further ahead. And if you've already got several car loans and you have one now, think about how you can avoid one in the future. So think about when your current car loan is up, can you just continue like you're paying it and stash it in a savings account, and then take care of the vehicle for as long as you can, and then you've got cash in a bank account, and then can you use that to buy a vehicle next time you need one? Could you
to go towards it?
Yep. If you're a 2-car family, could you be a 1-car family? Like what? And yes, there's sacrifices, but it adds a lot of value to your future and your finances to be able to avoid the car payments. Like some of the car payments, just debilitating.
I think it's lowering expectations and trying to peel off the care that you have for what other people are going to think when you show up, because there is a stigma around certain vehicles, and I catch myself doing it too, and I'm like, that means nothing. That just means that they very likely took on more debt than the person beside them. Like that's 90% of the time.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
And when we've talked about this before too, like a lot of times there is pressure depending on your profession to drive a certain level of vehicle, because then people perceive you as being better at that profession.
Yes. Yeah.
So real estate agents, mortgage brokers that have like their information on the side of a vehicle, like I feel like there's a lot of pressure in like more of those like sales jobs where you're going out to visit people. But if you are going to like, I have an older, so I have a 2017-18, but we also have a 2010 like Ford Focus, Ford Fusion. So it's like, if I don't go to people's homes anymore. I just do everything virtual. But like at the time when I was going to clients' homes, if somebody was going to choose not to work with me because of the car I drove, because you perceived that I didn't have a fancy enough car, then it's like, that's not somebody that aligns with me and who I want to work with.
And that's also just the story that they're spinning. Like, we make good incomes, but we don't prioritize it in the vehicles we drive, because we know that those are depreciating assets. And the vehicles we have right now, like in my world, it's like we will just drive those into the ground.
Yeah.
Right? Like
and that's what happened. Okay. When we decided to buy our car last year, the car was in the shop, and there's always that tipping point when it's going to cost this much to fix it. And we decided at that point, we're like, no, we're going to start looking for new vehicles. And we recently had a car repair bill on the older car for, I think, around $2,000. And the shop called us to tell us how much it was going to be. And my husband took the call, and he made it seem like the shop was very surprised that we were deciding to go ahead with the repairs, even though the car's probably worth like $3,000 or $4,000 if we were to sell it. But it's like, we're not going to go and get a new to us vehicle for what that repair cost. And we've recently done like some body work on it. Like we've done other things to maintain it. So it's like, yeah, go forth and do the work. And like, we just need to start stashing a little extra in our car maintenance fund. So, so just one of the things. So this is a younger person, early 30s, looking to buy first car. They have a lower credit score. They have an annual income of 75K. Current debts around 30K. Great at not missing any payments. Paying a big chunk of their biweekly salary towards paying back debt. But they said on weeks that they pay back rent, they only have about $200 left. And they're wanting to buy what they call their dream car. And it will be their first car. And of course, they visited the dealership and they have a biweekly payment amount. And they say that they think they can afford it with careful budgeting. And to me, does this give you any red flags?
Well, yes. I'm looking ahead to the numbers too. So they're saying on the weeks I pay rent, I have $200 left. And I'm jumping forward to what the dealership said their biweekly payment would be of $338. So we're all like, yes, there's so much careful budgeting that you can do, but that's negative right there.
Yeah.
By $138. And we don't have car insurance factored in there.
Yep.
I have been in need of a car for years. So what are you doing right now? And do you need this? Like, do you need this dream car?
Yeah. And a big red flag for me too is that they've indicated that their total debt amount right now is around $30,000. Now they haven't said what that is. And probably at that age, there's a big chunk or maybe all of it could be student loan debt
or lines of credit. And yeah.
But if it's credit card debt or line of credit debt, then that's a huge red flag because that's like you're already living over your means because you have that debt. And it doesn't like there's a lot of missing information around like how long have they made 75K in income?
Yeah.
What is that debt? But like for your first car to be your dream car, I think if you're a car person and you have dreams of a certain car, plan for it in the future, but it doesn't need to be your first car. And their question is they don't want to commit financial suicide by getting their dream car, but they say it's about time to get behind the wheel. So it doesn't say what the car purchase price is.
It goes both ways, right? It's like, I don't want to, but they're also clearly aware that like this isn't probably their best decision.
Yep.
And when we're making these big financial decisions, ultimately, and any life decision, God, I would love for someone else to be my compass and direct me, but it has to be us. And when we're kind of feeling that uncertainty, it's like, well, if I put this out there, maybe people will reassure me and reaffirm me, but like, they're not going to be there when you're short on rent.
Exactly. And sometimes when I go through the comments on posts like this, they're like, yeah, you go, girl. Like they're cheering people on.
Right.
And it's like, and a lot of times the comments are like very polar opposite with people.
Yes.
Like me saying like, can you save up and save 10 grand and buy a car for 10 grand and avoid a car payment? And there's people like, yeah, you make 75K, you deserve it. But
right.
Being able to, I think the fact that people are out there asking is like they know that it's not the best thing. And they're looking for either like people to say, oh yeah, you go, you deserve it. Or like, stop.
Right. It's like my body feels it's a yellow light. So can someone say green or red for me?
Ooh, that'd be great. That's a good way to think about it. And here's another one. And this is kind of like this person in this last post down the road a year or two. So this person bought a car for over $85,000. They love it. They say they have no problem affording it, but they're moving and want to get rid of it. And of course, the problem is that the car drops in value. It's probably at 85. It's probably a new car. The car drops in value.
It's probably a new car.
Faster than you pay off your loan. So as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's a big chunk of it. And being able to then try and get rid of it is challenging because whatever they owe left on the car and what the value of the car is. So they say the current value is around 35 and the remaining loan is around 69. So they've got $40,000 in this negative equity that we talked about before. And what it leaves you really kind of trapped.
Absolutely. That's one of those situations where we can't go back in time. So, but it sounds like they don't need it.
Yeah.
I had a client where they sold their vehicle to their parents. Like that worked out well because they got their loan covered. But in this case, your family members are not
nice
going
parents.
to, right? In this case, your family members aren't going to pay you $40,000 above market price just to get you out of debt typically.
So just like look down the road and think about like, what do I think my life is going to look like the next however long you're going to have that car loan for. So if you're signing on the dotted line for a 7-year car loan, think about like what do I want for my life in the next 7 years? And if you think it could possibly be moving to a bigger city that you want to use public transportation, that cars just like, it sucks to have a car. Like think about down the road. And I know it's so hard when you walk into the dealership and they've got this fancy car that you really like and they've qualified you and you can afford it because you can afford the monthly payment, but it really can end up leaving you stuck. And not having car payments was, again, one of the reasons that after I got fired, I was able to have time to decide what was next because we have reduced financial pressure. So it's, really thinking long-term beyond the new shiny car. I went to look at a new car yesterday because this person's 22-year-old car was old and slow.
So this part, I'm like, yeah, old, okay, but like, what do you mean slow? Like, what does that even mean? Is it truly not getting up to speed and it's a safety because in an 80 you can only go 60? Or are you just getting tired of getting into this vehicle and you are on a bit of a like, I'm going to get a new vehicle. Like
on a shiny new thing.
On a shiny new thing.
Yep. So called and got a quote from the dealership for $500 a month, putting $6,000 down, insurance at $200. So the new car would cost $700 a month. And the current car insurance
without dealer maintenance.
Oh, so yeah, base cost minimum.
Without moving it from your driveway.
So they currently put aside $220 a month for repairs and have a really low car insurance payment of $20, which I'm curious where they live.
This person's 22 years old. Are they?
Oh no, their car was 22 years old. Yeah.
Are they on their parents' insurance? Because I have clients where they bought mom and dad's vehicle, but it's still insured under mom and dad, so they just pay mom and dad. I know that that's not the way to do it, but I'm like, that is a way too good a deal on your vehicle.
And then it doesn't really give details or specifics or like how long the car loan is for or what the purchase value is, but just again, think about the long term and what do you need. So partner together to like, what bare bones do you need in a car and what financially does that do to impact your overall picture? Because like I just don't want anybody to be car broke. And when I come across clients who have like they make a good income and then you see if they're a couple, you see two like fairly big car payments and you think about like if you're thinking about purchasing a car, go plug into an online investment estimator and like plug in that $250 biweekly or whatever it is and see if you invested that or even half of it, what would that be in 10 years or 20 years or 50 years when you retire, depending on how old you are.
And like, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate. Is that like car loans aren't the worst thing if the car makes sense or the vehicle makes sense, right? So did that 19-year-old need that brand new Ford Edge or new Ford Edge Sport Edition All-Trix? No. Did I get approved for it and say I can afford the monthly payment? Yes. Wasn't what I needed. I could have done something way different. Can't go back in time. Sharing this with you now. Think about your options. Think about what's best for you, not how someone else is going to perceive you when you pull up in a certain vehicle. So that brings us to the point of leasing. So leasing vehicles is kind of like long-term renting a vehicle, right? Similar to leasing an apartment, you set a certain time span. Within that time span, the dealership typically maintains the vehicle. So maintenance is off of you, and you have a biweekly or monthly payment. No, like once that lease is up, there's no equity. That vehicle is not yours.
You give the car back or have a purchase option. So at the end, so say you have a 7-year car lease, you've paid into it for 7 years, and then you have no vehicle unless you then go and take a loan out or finance through the dealership to buy that car out. And one of the things too is usually there's like limits around mileage. So if you go over, then not only if you want to like not have that car anymore, not only are you walking away without a vehicle, you are also then owing for the extra mileage that you went over. So I'm never going to lease a vehicle. I think there are some situations where it would work and would make sense. So if you drive a lot of kilometers and if you work into that a business component, so say you are a real estate agent and you drive like half of your kilometers on your vehicle are for work, then leasing gives you the ability to deduct more of that on your taxes. So this is Canadian based information. It'll vary depending on where you live. And then if you're getting a new car like every 3 or 4 years because you're putting a lot of mileage on it, it makes more sense then. But if you don't have that business portion of it, I think like the issue with leasing is that you never then get to the point where you cannot have a payment, because if you lease for 7 years and then you get a loan to buy it out for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever that is, then at the end of that 14, 15 years, that car probably doesn't have a whole lot of life left in it. And then you're right back into the loan or the lease again.
And I'm running into, goes back to financing, but I'm running into situations where the loan is outliving the vehicle. So not ideally, not always happening, but it's happening where you still have a loan for a vehicle that you no longer have because it crapped out. Car accidents or totaling a vehicle can kind of get you into that could be a whole different other episode, but similar where you don't have that vehicle anymore and insurance did not pay out what you owed.
Yeah. I know there's some like car insurances that you can get that will have like full replacement value for a period of time.
Insurance or something. Yeah. Or yes.
How much extra cost is that?
Yes. I went through this. Oh my gosh. I don't think it's called umbrella insurance, but yes.
And like what they sell you that the insurance is and what it actually does is like you unfortunately don't know that until you're in that position. And it's like, oh crap, no, that they didn't pay out and pay my car loan off. So it's like there's lots of different ways you can go. And if we had our say and could just change everybody's mind, which I hope we're changing your mind, it's like think about the lowest need of vehicle cost wise that's sufficient for you. And yes, it's not fancy, and leaning into some of the cars that have a lot of longevity, like a Honda Civic or a Toyota Camry. So like looking at those vehicles that have been taken care of and last a really long time. Like my kid currently driving a 2004 Honda Civic. Now there are some maintenance issues there, but teaching life lessons along the way. So being able to have that vehicle because that was their budget and they had a really low budget and may have given mom a few heart attacks when they drove it a very long distance, but being able to not have a car payment is really important to them. And I like a little bit of me has sprinkled into them and things I wish I knew.
Yeah, it's balancing it, right? Like balancing reliability, safety, financial health.
Yep.
And then the smallest piece of that, it's hard because if it's the biggest, if it's the loudest voice in the room is what other people are going to think of you, you're going to make a silly choice, as I did.
Yeah.
But if you can make that the smallest piece or how much you care about what other people think of you and just focus on like reliability, safety, financial health.
Yep.
A golden.
And if you're going into a car dealership very soon, just keep this in the back of your mind. Go in with a maximum purchase price. Don't go in with a monthly or biweekly payment that you can afford because they can massage those numbers. Go in with a maximum vehicle purchase price that you want to have. And then also you need to have in your mind too, like what you can afford, but the shorter period of time you can get a loan for, or the smaller the loan you can get because you put a big chunk down in cash. And if you're going into a dealership to buy a car and you have cash to pay for it, don't tell them that until you've negotiated the price because they get a big kickback from helping you finance. And often they don't like when you're going to pay for it outright, and we'll consider that in the negotiation. So if they ask you how you're going to pay for it, it's like, I'm still considering my options, and then sign and then make, oh yeah, I'm going to go get you a certified check and pay for the vehicle. So keep your negotiation cards close to your chest.
Perfect. So if car ownership is top of mind or you're thinking about what's on the horizon for you, hopefully this helped. Thanks for listening.
And send it to a friend who's going to head to a car dealership soon. And we can't wait to see you next time on the Mind and Money podcast.